Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So, I've been thinking recently, what do Reform Party actually offer anyone in this country? Because if you don't know, there are actually local elections coming up on the 1st of May. So, right now, it seems like the only people that know what Reform offer are the people that are voting for the Reform Party. Because I'm definitely not going to vote for them. It just seems like no one actually knows what they actually offer apart from immigration and nothing else. Are they really for the working class? I'm not really sure. We don't really know what they offer. Here, maybe we might actually see what they offer if they actually offer anything tangible for the working class. But remember, if you like the video, drop a like. It's very, very helpful. And also, if you really, really like the content, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it.
Which party is Britain's true workers' party? Andy, what do you think?
I think, the suggestion that Reform UK would ever be the party of the workers or even the party of the working class is ridiculous. This is the party that voted against the Employment Rights Bill, that have stood
Exactly. Voting against the employer rights bill literally just shows you, okay, you are probably not for the working class, literally.
against the Employment Rights Bill, banning the bill that would ban fire and rehire, that would give rights from day one, that would protect maternity and paternity pay, which would equalise the minimum wage. That on its own, I appreciate that's a trade union aligned thing, but even then, Reform UK, they talk about white working class issues. They say they're the defenders of the working class Britain. They only talk about them when it suits them. They'll talk about immigration because it's, alienating the working class. They'll talk about big cities alienating the working class, but
That's literally the thing right now. When you think about it, actually, the biggest thing that they always seem to care about most is literally immigration and nothing else. But they use that immigration because it's the biggest, like, it's the hottest topic right now. They don't actually care about the working class. They don't, because they believe the rhetoric that they actually always bring out when it comes to immigration will always get them the vote. As long as they can tell everyone, let them know, hey, we are very much against immigration. That's fine. They don't, like, the people that vote for them, Reform Party, they don't even need to convince them that they're for the working class, because the rhetoric that they're already bringing out about immigration is more than good enough to gain support. So they don't need to show that they're for the working class. Why? When all they can do is literally just say, hey, we're against immigration, vote for us. And then boom, that's it, they'll get support. Why would they ever be for the working class? They already are getting the people of the working class to vote for them.
only when it suits them. They don't talk about the working class issues of, child poverty, of dental issues on council estates. They don't talk about advocating for apprenticeships, which will raise people out of poverty. They choose and pick which times they want to advocate and defend and speak for the working class, but they never just speak for the working class in all their issues. They pick and choose and just use them as a political football. So to suggest that Reform UK are any sort of workers' party is ridiculous.
Andy, you've spoken with a passion that makes me think you're quite worried about this.
No, I'm not. I'm not particularly worried. I think the Labour Party have certainly, failed to truly represent the working class for the last 30 years. Certainly, they've moved to a more middle-class, metropolitan kind of voter base, which wins them elections. But realistically, Reform UK, I'm tired of Reform UK using the working class as a political football. They've been doing it, for well before Reform UK, well before the Brexit Party. Nigel Farage's been doing this since '97, and it's just silly to suggest he has the working class vote behind him because he just uses them as a football.
Every time that I've actually seen Reform Party ever talk about anything that's actually going to be beneficial to the working class, it always seems to be, they always reference increasing the personal wage allowance from like 12,000 to 20,000. So the first 20,000 is never going to get taxed. That's good, that's fine. But then obviously that reduces the amount of government funds that's going to be available to people on benefits, the NHS, all the social services. Like how do you compensate for that? So people obviously just hear the fact that, oh, our personal allowance is going to get increased, more money for us. Yeah, sure. But it also means the people that are most deprived, that rely so much on government funds, they wouldn't be able to get it, because by increasing the personal allowance, you're reducing how much money is actually going to be there for the people that need it.
But he does. He does have the working class
Does
vote
Andy
before
protest
him.
too much?
Well, look, the reality is that the working class don't agree with you. So,
well, I am working class, so I feel like I'm entitled to agree with myself. Thank you.
No, you are.
Yes, of course, it can seem like that. The working class doesn't agree because the working class vote for him, but they're not voting for him because, oh my God, there's so much policy that's going to help us. The only reason why they're voting for him is because they get sold on the rhetoric about immigration. That's the only thing, okay? So don't ever get that confused.
can absolutely have whatever view you want, but the working class as a whole don't agree with you, because we know from the polling that the majority of the working class...
Well, C2DE voters, which is the legal working class, all support Labour. They overwhelmingly support Labour.
So
Andy,
we know from the polling...
Exactly. Also, Labour have a huge majority in the parliament. So I'm not sure which working class she's talking about.
that the most popular party amongst the working class in this country and across the red wall is Reform. I'm not a member of Reform. I don't have a dog in this fight in that sense. But the reality is that if you look across the top 100 target seats that Reform has for the next general election, nearly 2/3 of them are currently Labour held. So there is a disagreement between those who wish for Labour to represent the working class and the perceptions of the public, who by and large, at least at this point, across great swathes of the North, the Midlands and Wales, for instance, are at least saying, and in larger numbers voting, for Reform. So,
Jennifer, I suppose we can't know what the working class thinks because it's a very variegated beast anyway, but tell me what things you think the working class is interested in that Reform is offering.
well, we know quite a lot, again, a generalization, but we know that they care about secure borders and immigration.
And that's it. That's literally where it stops. That's the only thing they're using to convince workers. They now translate the immigration. They tell them, hey, listen, if we reduce the amount of people coming into this country, then that means the amount of jobs that's actually going to be open to you people that are born in this country, it's going to increase. So therefore, we're for the working class because we can reduce immigration. But even though like there's so many like parts of the economy that requires so much labor that people born in this country are not able to fill, which is why migration is really, really important. It's just really odd.
We know that they do care about jobs and prosperity and the cost of living. And those are things that Reform speak of.
Same rhetoric all over again.
And Reform has the opportunity to take advantage of the Brexit realignment that the Tories squandered. And, you know, it's interesting what you say about the Employers' Rights Bill. And there are things within Labour's policy platform which I do think speak to the traditional working class. But you have to bear in mind that, on the other hand, they also are keeping on net zero. So they, you know, let's take control of Scunthorpe Steelworks. Great. But if you're not going to allow the coking coal mine to reopen in Cumbria, if you're not going to bring down wholesale electricity costs to allow our industry to be competitive, then it's just the rhetoric of being for the working class when not in practice supporting reindustrialization and working class jobs. So I think...
Let me stop there, Jennifer, mate.
Us blokes hate talking about a little thinning up top, and many of us settle with that balding look, but that wasn't for me. And that's why I went to Elite Hair, the world's leading hair loss clinic, and now I've had over 4,000
In Aubrey, do you think Labour, which traditionally had the working class vote,
hair analysis. Then you'll join over 100,000 happy patients. Hit that link and start your hair growth journey like I did today.
and bring in Aubrey? Aubrey, do you think Labour, which traditionally had the working class vote, has some difficulties with it today? The sorts of things...
The thing is, right, he's asking this question, but he's got to realize, right, Reform parties have something very, very unique as of this moment right now. They have something extremely unique to political parties. They've never, ever, ever been in power. We don't know what it's like to have a Reform party as the government, right? So you can point to Tories for 14 years. You did this, you're not for the working class. You can point to the Labour Party. You're doing this right now, you're not for the working class. But there's nothing you can truly criticize Reform on because they have this unique advantage because they've never truly been in power. They've never been in the government. So you can never truly say, hey, if you're in government, this is how it's going to look. That's one big advantage that they have. So you can't critique them on that.
that Jennifer is describing.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's trying to cover multiple bases, and Andy made an astute point, which is that Nigel Farage has sort of played this game before. You know, UKIP went through an arc of kind of hoovering up, you know, traditionally conservative voters. They were viewed originally in the sort of early kind of 2010s as a sort of party of people who wore red trousers, the Eurosceptics, people that sort of looked like Nigel Farage and wore the tweed, and then they morphed, they changed into becoming this kind of vacuum which represented people who felt sort of socially left behind by the Labour Party, and they started representing people based on their social values more, and that caused them to get millions of votes in the 2015 general election, which they got, I think, 1 seat for, an absolute maximum. So the force has always been there. But now Nigel Farage has learned from that experience. He is reinventing the party, and he's done well to obviously hoover up lots of Conservative voters at the last election, arguably gifted Labour a much bigger majority by splitting the vote on the right, and now he's going after those Labour votes as well.
And according to a piece in The Observer today, Ed Miliband is doubling down on net zero. Then it's not very clear what Labour's immigration policy is. It's not very clear what its policy is on...
I don't understand this consistent attack on net zero. I don't understand what it seems what is this attack on net zero? They're not just doing this because they want to spend money anyway. It's clearly for a reasonable reason.
Biological realism. These are difficulties for Labour, aren't they?
Oh, certainly. I mean, if I had all the ideas about Labour policy, I'd be working in the number 10 policy unit. But luckily, I'm here with you. I think when you look at policy literacy, it's fair to criticise Labour and it's fair to criticise the government. They are the governing party. When you look at reform, they have no answers. Their big thing to fix immigration is to leave the ECHR. Well, they haven't ever considered that would completely collapse the Good Friday Agreement.
Exactly. What are the ramifications of actually leaving the ECHR? Where do you actually stand then? Because I mean, should we just leave the way we left EU? Is that it again? This is literally Brexit part 2. How people don't see this is very, very funny.
Agreement that would collapse the Supreme Court rulings in this country. They have no answer to these questions when they're posed to them of what would happen. You can't just go, oh yeah, just bin off international law. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. So when you can say Labour don't really have the answers, well, Reform certainly don't.
I would agree with Andy on that. I think one of the weaknesses of Reform is at the moment they have such a weak policy platform. That's not to say
exactly. Literally, it's so weak. You don't you're just naming stuff that they don't seem practical. So it's how would you ever fix anything if your solutions are not even practical?
Expect them to have everything written out 4 years before a general election. But when you look at the few areas where they have made policy pronouncements, they've been ridiculed. They just have a paucity of talent. Internally, for whatever reason, maybe they'll address it. But at this point, they just don't have the policy people internally to be turning out credible policy on a whole range of issues. So will it go beyond rhetoric and get into the detail remains to be seen.
Yeah, that's literally it. Right now, it's just rhetoric. It's very, very fascinating. I'm very nervous, but I'm very curious what it will actually look like in the government. Because right now, they've actually done something very, very fascinating. Something I find very fascinating. They've done this thing where they've managed to link every single problem to immigration. Problem with education, immigration. Problem with NHS, immigration. Problem with crime, immigration. Because migrants are coming over the seas and committing crimes. All these things, they've managed to turn it into just one big giant problem of immigration. And then they tell everyone, hey, if you fix immigration, it's just gonna stream down and then everywhere. And the economy, the police force, the benefits, everything will just be fixed. They've actually really done that really well. Even though it's very, very bad that people get convinced by it, it's very, very odd. But that's just my thoughts on it. If you are a Reform supporter, you can put it down in the comments below. What is it that we're actually missing? What is it that we don't actually know that you know, and this is the reason why you're supporting Reform Party? I will be very curious. I mean, most people actually will be very curious, but that's just my thoughts on it. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like. It will be very, very much appreciated. If you like the content, you can subscribe to be able to see more. Thank you.